Fair use and content disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by the host do not necessarily reflect that of the Psychological Association of the Philippines and its management. Furthermore, the views and opinions expressed by the guests do not necessarily reflect that of the host, the show, and the organization. Fair use is the copyright regulation that allows the limited use of copyrighted materials without acquiring permission from the right holders for comment and educational purposes. Views, articles, and images on this episode may contain copyrighted material which has not always been specifically authorized by the copyright owner.
This is being broadcasted to the Teaching Psychology Special Interest Group's social media platforms, when available. If you have any questions for our guests, simply comment on this video and we will try to accommodate all your inquiries. Note that after this broadcast, we may no longer be able to answer your questions. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Live from the Philippines, Dr. Ver Reyes and Professor Monique Muyargas, Chairperson and Co-Chairperson of the Teaching Psychology SIG.
Yay! Hello! Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
Oo, isang maulan na hapon. Hindi ko alam kung saan kayo nanonood. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat for joining us for this week's last episode. No? Yes. Meron pa tayong isa pang episode. So, excited tayo ngayon. We would like to say hello to our viewers from Tarlac. We also have viewers from Cavite. Good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. From Santa Maria, Bulacan, meron din. Tingi tayo ng ano dyan. Ano bang meron sa Bulacan? Chicharon. Yes. Hello po sa inyo sa Olfu Antipolo. Maraming salamat for joining us. Hello daw, ay mamaya na yan. Good afternoon sa inyong lahat na nanonood. Meron din tayo from Iloilo. Sorry, tama ba?
Oh, yeah. It's in Dingle, Iloilo. Hello. It's about an hour and a half away from the city.
Wow, hello po sa inyong lahat. Meron din tayo from the University of Bohol. syempre from Bohol. Para maraming salamat sa inyong pagsubaybay. Maraming salamat din. Ay, may mga shout out po sila.
Shout out. Invitations yan, tinatag.
Okay.
Hmm.
Maraming
So
salamat.
don't hesitate to share our live stream to your friends, your co-teachers.
Yes. Hello to everyone in Caloocan City, from Davao City, also from Muntinlupa. So, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat, lalo na sa Iloilo City, kung saan nagmumula. Friend mo yata to, Monique. Oh, may matuwa tayo. Meron tayo
from global.
From Bahrain.
I love it.
Tayo from mga TFC subscribers, no? Hello sa Lasal Bacolod.
Hello, Doc Dave. Hello.
How are you? From Lipa City, Batangas.
The home of my idol.
Yes, and also from Zamboanga City. Nanonood din sa atin ngayon yung ating Mars.
Mars.
The chairperson and the co-chairperson of...
Congratulations pala on their webinars past yesterday ba yan? The other day?
Oo, nung Wednesday, kinakalaban nila yung time slot natin, ano? Pero okay lang, masayang-masaya kami. Kasi ibig sabihin,
the more the merrier.
Maraming makakapagbigay ng kanilang mga information to other people as well. So maraming salamat sa inyo. So Monique, meron tayong mga special na bisita ngayong araw na to. Ipakilala naman na natin kung sino sila.
Okay, of course, this particular webisode is in partnership with the Research in Psychology Special Interest Group. Please let us all welcome the chair of that SIG, Ma'am Joy Calleja. Saan na siya?
Ayo.
Hi.
Naiingit kami kasi always fresh.
Oo, maraming
lang kita, Monique.
Maraming salamat. Alam mo, dahil nandito na lang naman si Ma'am Joy, na dapat siya yung second na ipapakilala natin. Ipakilala natin yung co-chairperson naman din. So ako na magpapakilala naman sa kanya. Kung meron tayong napaka-fresh from Quezon City ba, Ma'am Joy?
Quezon City.
Na chairperson. Meron din tayong co-chairperson na fresh din from Iloilo City. Ipinapakilala natin ang co-chairperson ng Research in Psychology Special Interest Group, The Scientist. Walang iba kundi si Miss Ay Maciano.
Hi! Good afternoon!
Hi!
Hi, Shai!
Hi, Monique! Hi, Ver!
Ayan. So maraming salamat again for this partnership with the Research in Psychology Special Interest Group. Please check their Facebook page. Also, mag-like din kayo sa aming YouTube account. Makikita nyo yun sa baba. Para naman meron kami more than 83 subscribers. Oo, para meron kaming mga perks na makukuha na hindi naman namin na para dito. So maraming salamat. Iwan muna namin kayo, sino ba yung makakilala ulit? For this afternoon. Kasi madami siyang pin-repair yung ating
Oo nga. Yeah.
Diba?
Ako na magpapakilala.
Okay.
Take it away, Ma'am Joy.
Sige. So, good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this webinar on teaching field methods online. No? So, it's the third and the last part of the current webinar series organized by PAP's Teaching Psychology and Research in Psychology Special Interest Groups. But of course, we are looking forward to many. So, hindi lang isang many, di ba? Many more future partnerships, because teaching and research always go together, diba? So I usually create my own spiel, no, to describe the webinar and its objectives. But the description of the webinar, which was written by our speaker herself, no, was really beautifully crafted. So you have seen this already, but I want to read it again to you. So this webinar is an invitation to be excited to teach field methods online. While we are going through extraordinary circumstances and difficult challenges in this pandemic, we strive to fulfill our role as teachers in a new online environment. So this webinar invites teachers, old and new, blooming and bored, to a refresher for some or a retooling for others. No? So we return to how and why we teach field methods in the psychology curriculum and look at content and pedagogy. So we review what to teach and how to teach by going through a sample syllabus and class exercises. We then move forward by reimagining the classroom in an online setting and exploring ways on how we can effectively teach research online. Yan. So our speaker is a teacher and mentor to many. Kasama po kami doon ni Shai, si
Yes.
Ren, yan, so mga estudyante niya kami. Okay, she's an associate professor and former chairperson of the psychology department of the Ateneo. She's also currently the director of the Loyola School's Gender Hub, no, the Center for Gender Responsiveness in the university, in the Ateneo de Manila University. She has been teaching research methods for over 20 years and has been mentoring undergrad, MA, and PhD students in research. And she has been conducting training workshops now on qualitative research methods across the country. So she's also a recipient of the Father Jaime C. Bulatao Teaching Award conferred by the Psychological Association of the Philippines. So please join me in warmly welcoming our speaker, Dr. Mira Alexis Ofreneo. Mira.
Sana. Hi. Sana.
Baka nasa backstage pa.
Ayan. That's her.
Oo nga. Ayan na.
Okay. Nawawala si Ma'am Mira.
Baka umulan ng malakas sa kanila. Kaya nawala na.
Si Ma'am Mira. Pero, pabalik si Ma'am
Internet.
Mira. So, Dr. Mira Ofreneo will be talking about field methods. No? Bakit ba natin tunutulong tong field methods na to, Ma'am Joy and Shai?
Kasi very important for us, no, to know how to gather data, analyze data, no. So, of course, these are very critical skills, no, or competencies that we need to learn in the conduct of research. Well, bukod dun sa fact na it's a requirement, of course, to share that our students how to do this before they work on their thesis, di ba?
That's right, that's right. Isa din to sa mga bago na sinasama natin with the curriculum now that is required, no? Kasi ang nakikita natin masyadong maraming may nagpupukpok kung saan man yung nagpupukpok.
Sorry.
I think si Ma'am Mira yon trying to get in. So, mahalaga to kasi we have seen that a lot of research, Monique, baka gusto mong mag-join in sa amin, no? Nakikita natin na most of our research are based on statistical methods, no? At hindi masyadong napapakita yung isa pang side, no, of how we actually do research. So without further ado, baka mawala na naman siya. Again, we have Dr. Mira Ofreneo.
Hello. Sorry.
Hi, Mira.
Okay, ayan. Hi, Dr. Mira. Hello po.
Hello everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your time this afternoon with our viewers at I'm sure very excited na sila. So we will give we will give Ma'am Shai and Ma'am Mira the floor. Siguro baka meron kayong gusto munang i-clarify sa mga pwede nating pag-usapan while we prepare your presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm of panic already because my internet decided to
To disconnect.
to panic. Yes, yes.
Panic.
So I'm just praying.
Mira, you taught both quantitative methods and qualitative methods, di ba?
Yes, yes.
Oo, kasi naalala ko sa quantity ka teacher.
Oh my God! I think that even with Vera, no, parang she was in Quanti also, and well, it was a crossing over, and when I crossed, I realized I couldn't go back anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, I tried.
You fell in love with Quali.
Yes, and that's partly what I will share today. Um, the parang you find where you are maybe more aligned with in terms of worldview or epistemology. So,
Ayan. Sige. So I'm sure very excited na ang ating mga participants, no, to your presentation. So we will now show your presentation, your PowerPoint.
okay. Thank you.
So
Okay. Thank you again to the Teaching SIG and our Research SIG for inviting me to do this. I'm really very excited to be with all of you. And as I said earlier, also in a state of panic because I might disappear at any time. And if I disappear, Shai, please take over. Yes, thank you. Okay. So the flow of my presentation, if you can see the outline here, I put it in 5 parts. And first is we begin with reflexivity. This is one of my favorite words. Later I will say everything is my favorite, but a favorite word for those engaged in qualitative research. And we will start by reflecting on ourselves as teachers, as persons, as learners. So that is always to me the beginning point of teaching. You know? And maybe we'll spend around 10 minutes for that. And then we will go into the process that we need to cover for a field methods course. And our what has been our key article or standard has been Hershey's research as a script. And I will guide you through that script, you know, of doing research. And maybe for that as well, and the general content of a methods class, maybe we'll spend another 20 minutes or so. And then the bulk maybe of my presentation will just be a review, maybe, or if it's something new for you, it will be an overview of the content. What do we teach? What do we teach in methods? And I've been warned because I have 140 slides, but a lot of them are examples. So here I'll show you the many things that you can look into in terms of resources, especially now that we are in an online context. So what I've prepared really for you are mainly online resources. So as we do the shift to online mode of teaching and doing research. And so for that, maybe we'll spend around 20 minutes. And then I go into pedagogy. How do we teach? How do we teach methods? For this, I will share some sample exercises, which I've also done with my class. And I invite you to do the exercises. Do the exercise before you give them to your class so that you know what will happen to them. No? The part of this is experiencing the process. And in the end, maybe for the last 10 minutes, I'll go into teaching online because of our unique context where we were all, or we are all pushed into, I don't want to say force, but pushed into some hard, some gentle, a gentle push into teaching online. Okay, so then let's go into reflexivity. I put there reflexivity, me, you, that's you. And for this, if you see in the next slide, it's about starting where you are. Personal reflexivity. So let's take a pause. Let's take a moment to just reflect.
Let's take a moment daw to reflect. So,
Nag-reflect pa si Ma'am Mira. That's why.
mag-reflect si Ma'am Mira para doon. So, sige, why is it important ba, Shai, for reflexivity? Ano ba yung reflexivity? Baka hindi din masyadong alam ng mga manonood natin. Ano ba yung reflexivity?
My understanding of reflexivity is that sasabihin ko lang where I'm coming from. For example, if I do research on mining conflict, and at least alam ko na I'm anti-mining, so that has to be communicated also to my readers, kumbaga, no? So that they would know where I'm coming from. Ako din, alam ko. No?
Oo. Tama ba yon, Ma'am Mira?
Mali yung sinabi ko
Ano yung
Yeah, of
reflexivity?
course. Yes. And we begin with where we are. And that to me is important. As I have there in the slide on questions, you start from where you are, and these are some sample questions you can begin with. And as Shai has answered, no, you begin with where you are, your issues, the issues you're passionate about, but in particular, perhaps the time that we are in, that we are all living in a pandemic, we are all working in our own small spaces, maybe in our own homes. So it's a reflection on you as a person where you are now, and also you as a teacher, because they will intertwine how we live, how we are feeling right now, and how we are feeling about being a teacher during this time. And so I invite you to ask these questions of your teacher story, why you teach methods, what is the meaning of research for you? Because for sometimes it's not a choice to be teaching methods, but for me, it is something that I really love. It is something, as Joy said earlier, that I fell in love with. And so to me, this is something I love doing, and that's what I share to students, my love for research. So what is the meaning of teaching research for you? And if you're not yet there, if you feel like research is just something you have to do because it's the load that was given to you, I invite you to try to look for that meaning. And that will link to the reflexivity of our students and starting from where they are. And so from where we are, our story, we connect it to their story. Where are they at this time? Well, my issue right now is connectivity, but what I'm trying to bring up is connection. Let's connect to our students, and with the students, asking them this same set of questions. Why are they in psychology? And what is the meaning of research for them? What will be the meaning of learning research methods? Because together, as teacher and student, we will learn together, we will journey together to create our story of research. And it's in these stories that a class comes alive. The way I would teach a research class is to share my own stories of doing research and doing that very research with my students. So know where they are, know where they're coming from, know even their fears and anxieties, and try to discuss these fears and anxieties before going into the content of methods. That's my invitation. And so I put a little sidebar here where I show my teacher story. I'm not sure if you're seeing that slide right now. Okay, so then here it's an invite of okay, that's my picture there. And I thought I always share this, that when I begin my class, I always begin with where I am coming from as a teacher. And I start with my story of why I am a teacher and why I do research. For example, just to share with you, I started as an economics major in UP Diliman. And I always tell the story of walking along the sunken garden, if you know that there is that like big field of a garden in front of the College of Education. And I was just walking, and then suddenly it occurred to me, I want to be a teacher. It's so striking, no? It's like, wow, it came from the heavens. I was called to teach. But I was in economics and I wanted to teach psychology. So when I applied for a job to teach psychology, no one accepted me. And so I continued with my studies. And so I then took psychology, my MA and my PhD in Ateneo. And that's where I really fell in love with research. I had Dr. Emily Wag as my mentor. And in my MA, I had Dr. Tina Montiel as my mentor during my PhD. And research for me is getting to know people. And the reason why I'm drawn to psychology is because psychology is about people. It's about understanding people, how they feel, how they think, how they relate to each other. And research is our way of knowing people, of hearing their stories, of recording those stories, and then analyzing those stories and bringing it back to the people, the story of their stories, as research. So that's just a sidebar on my story. So I invite you to have that kind of story as you begin a methods class. So moving forward, we see that methods inside the psychology curriculum here is like here on the right side in red. You see that our training is generally quantitative. We have so much quanti. We have stat, we have expect. And then recently introduced, we now are teaching methods. To me, the value of putting methods in the curriculum is to create that balance of having the quanti side, quanti approach to research, and also having the quali side to research. So we can do the numbers, we can do SPSS, but at the same time, we know how to talk to people, we can interview people, we can get their narratives, and share those narratives. So that's the balance here. And to think that most of us were trained with just a purely quanti psychology curriculum, but now we give this to our new generation of psychology majors. And that to me is what I want to highlight for today, for this afternoon, that the value of putting methods in our curriculum is to also be able to highlight the qualitative side. What does that mean? So moving on, we see we see that we're trying to develop a set of competencies in our students, right? That's outcomes-based education. We all have been trained to do this, OBEs. And given that for this class, students need to learn to do quality research, right? But most of us have a background in quanti research. So the beginning point for me to be able to teach this methods class is to develop our competencies in qualitative research. So I really wanted this to be an invitation. Try it out. It does not have to be formal research. It can be just to try interviewing a person, a friend. It can be just to try analyzing a piece of data like an FB post or a blog. You try to practice the competency of doing qualitative research so that is what you facilitate in your students. Because in the end, our students will learn from us as teachers. And so if we want our students to become researchers, we too must embrace research. So that, in a way, is my intro to this presentation on methods and reflexivity. And we proceed with research as a script. And this was developed by Hershey and colleagues, where they actually ask people, researchers, how do they do research? And from that, getting to know how people do research, they created the script. And this is the script. First, you will see that it has these 5 steps. Step 1, where you formulate the idea, and then step 2, formulate the design. 3, collect the data. 4, analyze the data, and then communicate the findings. This is our very simple 5-step process for research, and it applies to every research. It can be quanti, it can be quali, it can be mixed. And I explained to students that the script, if you move to the next slide, you will see that it actually can locate what happens to them in thesis. So in the next slide, you will see that this is what students need to accomplish. Usually for one SEM, they develop a proposal. You have an intro and a method. Those are the parts. And then for another semester, the thesis is completed. So you see the parts of the thesis: intro, method, results, discussion. That they will do for the thesis. But in methods class, they do a mini version of that. They do almost like a mini thesis. It's a project. So methods, just like STAT and XPsych, need to be learned by doing it. So we need to do the entire process for one semester. Trial lang, practice, mini. Well, it is called mini, small as well. Okay, and moving forward, you see that for each part, there are more steps. So if you look at the steps for formulating an idea in the next slide, you will see, I'm not sure if you're seeing the slide that which reflects that formulating the idea has many steps. Shai, is it okay? Can you see it? So in the slide on formulating the idea, there should be many steps.
Yeah, there. That's the
That's there, right.
formulating the idea. Okay.
Just to show you, yes. Thank you, Shai. That's just to show you that there are steps for each step, parang sub-steps, and that this usually is the most difficult part. Like for our students, this is the struggle because they have to arrive at a question, and for you, I'm assuming you've encountered research coming up with a question, starting with that idea, reviewing the literature, formulating it into a question, matching it with the design, and then evaluating if your idea is okay. That is a struggle, and that it will take a month for students to do that. But in methods, maybe we'll do like maybe a week, on this, just arriving at a question, because it's just practice, a week or 2 weeks. And then next, you go into designing. And in designing, you see the elements of design. This is the technical part. This is like building now your foundations, because you need to have a good foundation to be able to build a really good study or really good research. And you look at the issues there. You have to be concerned about what's the plan in step 1, the measures, instruments, how will you collect the data, how will you analyze the data. You need a plan. And then prepare them. Now, these are the materials. These are my ethical protocols. And then you pilot. Design, prepare, then pilot. And then with that, you have a proposal. So they do this. They again go through these steps in methods, and then they collect data, the next step. And for collecting data, there's the process of recruiting, finding the people, and now the uniqueness of our context would mean that we recruit online, we ask people online. So that would be an interesting experience, but nevertheless, recruitment or sampling, and then analysis. And because it's qualitative analysis, you notice that analysis is just repeated there. You start with 1, analyze. You start, and then 2, analyze, and then 3, analyze, and then 4, analyze. The word here is it's an iterative process. Judith loves that word. Iterative, the iterations, because it's going into the data, going back to your frame, going into the data, going back to your theory, until you arrive at the final results, which is very different from a quantitative approach, which has a preset hypothesis You put it in, no, the statistical, produce the statistics, and it's set. The results is set. You can't change it. Here, there is an iteration. Actually, it changes as you grow in your appreciation or understanding of the data. And then in the end, we communicate. So in communicating, this is the time we again take a step back, we reflect, think about how that links to theory, to past research. We draft the paper, we draft, and then present. So in methods class, this is the same thing. Before they do the final paper, which is step 4, you ask them to present first orally so that they can get feedback. They can get validation. Do they make sense? And usually it's the presentation, the oral presentation, that allows them to refine the writing because they get to see, oh, this is important. Oh, these are the most important parts. And then only in step 4 do they write the final manuscript. And for methods class, just a small, or let's say a mini version of a manuscript. In my own class, I would ask them to write like a 12-page paper instead of like a 30-page manuscript. And then hopefully we go for publication. This is not yet the goal for a methods class, but it is now becoming to be a goal for thesis classes, whether it's a PhD dissertation, an MA thesis, and even now for undergraduate students, they can produce a really good thesis and publish. So then the point here is we share this entire process with our students. We invite them to engage in that process. And sometimes some students would want to go for that end goal of publishing. And so that summarizes the research as a script. We again have these 5 steps, and I have transformed that in the next slide, which will be our guide for the rest of the presentation. In terms of content, these 5 steps: conceptualization, design. So thinking first, theory first, conceptualize the question. 2, go into the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts of design method. And then 3, collection. And then 4, analysis. And then writing up. Are we good, Shai?
Yes, we are.
Yes. Okay, great. Look, I'm doing well in terms of time. So now we enter the things you need to think about in terms of content. So let's move into conceptualization and what to teach. So for this part, I'll try to share some concepts, and then perhaps maybe as we've done in the past with the teaching SIG, Vera has shared our teaching materials, including our presentation slides. That's fine. You know, I believe in shareware and Creative Commons. So let's share everything. So this is my sample method syllabus. Of course, you cannot read it. I don't want you to read it, but then going into the details of this, I hope it's still viewable. When you break it down, let's look at that. I hope you can still see the one highlighted in light pink, where it shows you that the student goes through the complete research process, broken down further into smaller steps instead of my 5 steps. They do the lit review, conceptualize, design, instrumentation, collection, management, analysis, write-up. Just to show you that it's really in the syllabus. And then when you look at the next part of the syllabus, you will see our learning outcomes don't just focus on explain the theory. You go into analyzing really, like step 3, and then you go to really conceptualizing, designing, writing in outcome 4, and then you go further into what you do with research participants in step 5, practicing ethical procedures, practicing being a responsible researcher, and then evaluating the significance, the validity, the soundness, and producing the report, no? And sometimes we have that space to still talk about qualitative interpretative frames. So that might seem a lot. Let's try to break it down now to time, and you can look at the flow. Here, I wanted to highlight that while our course is called methods, right? It's field methods, and it might sound like, oh, everything we will do here is just about data collection. What frames that data collection is epistemology, is theory. And part of our process in psychology is that approaching data, our unique approach to data, is to come from a frame, to come from a lens. And epistemology is critical. And I say it's critical, especially for methods, because usually like methods is taken junior year, they've taken STAT, XP-Psych, assessment. All of their previous psych subjects on method look at a positivist paradigm. And now in field methods, you have to introduce a social constructionist paradigm. So spend time in epistemology. I put here 2 weeks, but usually we go over time here. Sometimes it takes us 3 weeks to figure out epistemology. But I have to say this is very important. And once they figure this out, it's like you're opening a world to them. It's like, wow, there is another world in psychology, which understands people's what people say, their stories in a different way, not quantitatively but qualitatively. No, let's say going into their phenomenology, their subjectivity, or understanding them in terms of discourses. No, so this it opens a new world. So spend time on that. The next part will be looking at the details now of design. Usually this is a review just for them to see, okay, let's link it back to quanti, maybe a little bit of survey design, then going into quality designs. Sometimes we can already now introduce mixed methods because we're now 5 units, so that's possible. And usually an overview of data collection methods. No? Sometimes survey design is also tackled here in methods, but because that is also tackled in STAT, like you need to produce a survey questionnaire to be able to produce your numbers in STAT, we feel like this is just already like a refresher for them. That's why we focus a lot on the qualitative side. And then the next part you will see is an entire month on the interview. I want to highlight this because imagine, one entire month. And the point is to learn the data collection tool. Interviewing is a data collection tool. It's a method of data collecting. And then you match that, you put them, they go to the field, they have to interview a person, no? And then do all the steps. So they have to analyze that. So here you also introduce thematic analysis and then produce the write-up. 1 month is actually already like making it compressed and compact. This might take like a month and a half. And now we have to reconfigure our weeks because now we're online. No? So parang we're looking at things in a more modular manner. But this to me is central to this class. If this is all they will learn, I'll be happy. Like they know how to interview and analyze interview data using thematic analysis. Fine, they can graduate. Because this is such an essential skill. And then the next is to ask them to actually run an FGD. Now, this might be challenging in this online context, but I'm telling you, it is possible. You can run FGDs online. And this is the other data collection tool that we need to introduce in methods. So it's those two key collection methods, interviewing and running a discussion. Again, they go through the different steps. So in an entire semester, if you have like just 4 or 5 months of a semester, 1 month interviews, 1 month FGD, the rest will be on epistemology, the designs. No, you're done for the semester. No? But because again, we've made field methods 5 units, we can include, and to me, what I would suggest is to include other data collection methods, especially deriving data online, like getting from FB, getting from Twitter, and analyzing readily available data. So now it depends on each department and school how to approach methods in terms of those other additional skills, right, and knowledge. So going into the grading, you will see the breakdown here. How we, like in my own class, I put it as projects. So the entire interview project, which has 8 steps for me, will be 25%. And here you can see it's broken down, no? 5% for each output. Let me see your interview guide, 5%. Let me see your transcript, 5%. Let me see your write-up, 5%. So every step has a weight in the grading. And this is the only course where at the end of the SEM, I realized I gave more than 20 requirements. And I said, oh my God, like, wow, that was just a lot to check, but segmentized, no? It's small submissions. But it was just, wow, they did 20. This has been like the course that I've had the most number of requirements, methods. Aside from, exams are, to me, not the essential assessment tool here or rubric. Here really the assessment has to come in relation to what they produce, the outputs of research, and to look at the outputs step by step, not just one box. Don't just grade the final report, because there is there's energy and effort put into each step, and you might not see that in the final paper. Okay, so that's our sample syllabus. And then we go now into conceptualization concepts. So here, let me introduce our primary text. Creswell is like probably so popular now, no? Like we've been using Creswell like for the last, I think, 15 years. Interesting, Creswell is an education, no? And so this is shared with the rest of the social sciences, but I find it to be a very easy way of understanding epistemology if this is new to you. And epistemology will be experienced by our students and even by you perhaps as a paradigm shift. And I've seen this in teachers when we would run qualitative workshops. It's like the world has changed because your lens of understanding the world has changed. Right, Shai? So,
Right.
yeah. And we've all been changed by this epistemology that you will see in the next slide. Sorry, this is the title of that piece, Creswell's Quanti, Quali, and Mix. And this is the framing. Before you jump into the design, into the method, we have to look at the back end part, no? The backstage, where you see there's conceptualization there. Creswell calls it alternative knowledge claims. In the next slide, he will present that as a table where you put the knowledge claim to the usual design. And usually, for quantity research, the frame, the lens. So it's like putting on a pair of glasses. That's my metaphor. You become post-positivist, and then you put it on. If you're doing quality research, you have to remove your positivist lens, and then you put on your, I can't see anything, constructivist lens. See? That's the shift. You're changing your lens. And so everything about qualitative research has to be understood using its own epistemological assumptions. This is the shift, because for most of us, for those who have been teaching a long time, the training we had was positivist. And that is a shift. Creswell calls them alternative knowledge claims. I call them paradigms. Some call them worldviews. No? Well, the technical term is epistemology. The epistemology. No? So you have reflexivity. Now we're doing epistemology. And just a little bit of review. If you see the next slide, you'll see these are the things we already know about positivism, how This is the scientific method, which has been the standard of doing research in psychology. Now, I won't go into the details of that, but just showing you that constructivism has a different set of assumptions where our interest is understanding how people make sense of their own experience. Not, let's say, not preset hypothesis, but asking people themselves, how do you understand your experience? What is happening to you right now in this pandemic? No? What is happening to you in relation to like the anti-terror bill? How do you feel about that? It's understanding people and then understanding how groups of people make sense of their own reality. How do we understand our reality now in relation to, let's say, what is happening now to media, to ABS-CBN, what's happening to press freedom? Or how do we make sense of these things? So it's in the construction, each person making meaning out of one's experience, groups of people collectively making sense of what is happening, leading us to this term called constructivism or social construction there. And so moving forward, inside qualitative design now, there are ways of looking at how we approach qualitative data, how we approach people's experiences. You can be experiential, that is very focused on experience, or you can be discursive, where you're very focused on language. And in the same way that quanti has its purpose, quali has its purpose, experiential research will have its unique purpose or utility, and discursive research will also have its significance. But just to show you that quali are not all the same, the approach to it. And another way of looking at it would be another frame saying experiential as realist and the discursive as radical constructionist. And that kind of continuum, like on one hand, is your intent to discover. This is what they really feel. This is really their experience, and you stay at that level. Or is your intent to construct, to co-construct reality? That is a discursive process. You want to understand how reality is co-constructed. So that's another way of framing qualitative approaches. And moving on, we return to reflexivity. So always, we have now our two favorite words, reflexivity and epistemology. Here, earlier, it was personal reflexivity. You as a person, you as a teacher, researcher. Now here, you're asked to reflect on your way of seeing, your lens, and how your lens, how your theory shapes your results. Because your lens will shape the question, and the question will shape the answer. I mean, it's also the same in quantitative research. Whatever model you use will shape the eventual findings or outcomes. That's what you will see. Now here, your lens, your frame will shape the answer. So that you have to sit with that maybe for 1 hour. No, then just reflect on it. No, reflect on it with a cup of coffee. No, and digest that, because this will be the shift for our students, the paradigm shift. Okay, so I hope we're still good with epistemology, and we can now move into design. And for design, what are we looking at? These are now the nuts and bolts. And, we see our friend again, Creswell, here. So we're moving and shifting from quanti to quali, as I said, because we've been already mostly trained in the quanti side. So I'm highlighting the quali aspects. But whether quanti or quali, there are shared elements in terms of designing. So we go into, again, returning to paradigm, making sure that if we follow a particular paradigm, like let's say we're post-positivist, and then when we go to the design, in the next slide, we try to match that with what's the design here. It's primarily quantitative. But not to say, just to say that you can also be post-positivist and engage in qualitative research. That's possible. But just making sure that there's a matching, and then going into now the elements. So in terms of the elements, we will see that we're looking at practical feasibility, ethical feasibility. Ethics is very important, and right now I think all our students are required to develop an ethics protocol, and that has to be approved by the ethics research committee of the university. So just examples of this I think comes from Bartlett, and this the Breakwell book on methods. You have concerns about practical feasibility. You're looking at participants. Cost is always a concern. Will you have the resources? Will you have the time? What is doable for one sem? So don't ask them for like a major project. Don't ask them to do 10 interviews. What is doable? One interview. I won't even say 1 hour of an interview. Sometimes I will only require like a 20-minute talk or a 10-minute talk. What is doable? Feasibility. The next is ethical the other concerns about participants would be will they be willing to talk to you? What if they don't show up and that happens? How do we ensure confidentiality, like especially now that we're online? How do we ensure that our talk will not be recorded elsewhere? Is our platform secure? And what is our ethical responsibility to participants? I think our basic rule here is let us do no harm, right? Do no harm principle. And some of the sample ethical considerations, you most likely your university already has this list of ethical considerations, like for example, confidentiality or making sure you have an informed consent form. And the PAP it's also, you will see, has its code of ethics, and we as PAP members, even if we're not PAP members, I think it's also a useful resource to look at the PAP code of ethics. And there are specific guidelines for doing research. So that's the method. Okay. Now we will move into data collection. And I hope you're still with me here and still absorbing all of these different points.
Yes, Dr.
I'm
Mira.
still here.
I'm still
Yeah?
here.
Clear ba?
Oo,
Good.
Baka you need to drink muna kasi medyo
Ayan.
we're going to more deeper. Ito kasi din yung tinitignan talaga and looking forward ng mga faculty members. No? How do we now collect data? Again, it might seem that there are too many concepts available, but these are basic. We need to remember that this is a new subject. No, not a lot of people are very aware of that. And we actually asked Dr. Mira to discuss about ano ba yung pagkakaiba o pagkakatulad nito when we're doing quantitative research. So data collection is something that we are looking forward to this. So sana magagawa din natin to in terms of doing it online.
Yes.
Sige.
Thanks, Blair. So I hope you're still able to give attention because with this online context it draws so much attention from us because we're looking just at the screen and we don't really know how people are. I'm just imagining people out there. Okay. Hello to all of you. So okay, data collection. What do we have here? What I have prepared is to share with you some resources to show how we can transition now in this online context that we are in to do our data collection online. For example, internet-based interviewing, that's possible. And if needed, maybe then this is also an invitation. If people would want to do that, we could have a deeper discussion on how to do the online interviewing. But I wanted to highlight a few articles like this one by James and Busher. And this article came out in 2006, which shows you that this has been part of our research world for quite some time, no? Parang you can look back and you have resources from 2005, 2006, 2007. And even at that point, they're talking about, is interviewing online credible? Is it authentic? What is the voice that you will, what will be the story, the narrative? It's interesting, no? And James and Busher will continue writing about online interviews 2020, so then they have already built a kind of like a set of resources for online interviewing. The other article I wanted to highlight here is by Jowett, Peel, and Shaw, and I particularly like this one because it's an invitation for us to start reflecting on the data that we capture from online interviews. And it's interesting how they compare it with, and if you have questions later, they compare it with what's the difference if you're doing it in person. Because one, you can also do it face to face, like here, like I'm seeing Shai and Shai can see me. But also, they've done interviews by text chat, just chatting on Messenger, or also by email, right? So that's interesting to see that you can do these other approaches. And these are some of the modes. You can go Messenger, you can do Google Chat, you can do Google Meet. These are, I think, they're generally free. And ones that I would suggest, because according to some resources now, these are the most secure, the safer alternatives. You have Skype and you have Jitsi. Have you heard of this? And both Skype, which is now owned by Microsoft, and Jitsi are freeware. So you can just log in and you can do your interview, you can do your FGD in these platforms, and they are considered to be the safest platforms right now compared to, let's say, FB or Zoom or the other platforms. Like, this is where I do my yoga. Okay, so this is as an aside on Jitsi, my online yoga. Now, moving on, we'll see that there are books that you can access. This one, edited by Flick. There's an entire book on just data collection. This is a huge book. This is very heavy. I'll ask Bear to just share this with you if you want a copy. And this handbook, if you look at the content, you will see that they are already talking about online data, an entire section on digital internet data. And if you look at the titles one at a time, you will see here that if you go and look at the next slide, you'll see that they unpack already, and into the next, you'll see they're unpacking already data. What is the meaning of data? Here, that's the first article. And then you see in the next article that they're looking already at ethical considerations and looking at, in this one, how to conceptualize data online, because that is also life online. We are also living online. I mean, our digital natives, the younger generations, are more familiar with this because they were born into this world. Now, us who are a little bit maybe in their 40s and higher, we're not born into this world, but that is the world they're unpacking now. And we have to understand that. We're looking at ethics in digital research. So we're looking at the uniqueness. We're looking at blogs. You can collect data from blogs. You can collect data from FB. So if they're public posts and there are comments, you can build a research on that. And we've had a number of studies looking at comments on FB posts. So it's really now understanding that there is a world out there where you have readily available data online. And that last article by Markham has written several pieces of articles on this digital world. No? And you can follow her, and her much of her work is also readily and freely available. So this is just to open ourselves up to the possibility of doing what we would do in person, like an online an interview in FGD, and then shifting it now to this online space. And we can do that. We are still people, we are still human beings interacting. We're just interacting online. And we have to now maybe just deal with the unique issues that arise because of the online context.
So, Mamira, this is also like shifting paradigms from doing it face to face to doing it online now.
Yes, I think uh, just like how we were all gently pushed into teaching online, it's like okay, it's having to embrace that. Now we have to embrace the reality that we have to do this online. But there's another point here that even without this pandemic, this alternative has always been available. For example, one advantage of this is like you are in Iloilo right now, right, Shai?
Yes.
We are interacting and talking, and I can do a complete interview of you, like with you right, diba, right now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But, which we cannot do, and it will cost me so much money if I will have to fly to Iloilo or you fly here to Quezon
Manila.
City,
That's right.
Manila. So, but like there are advantages to doing things on even before this happened, and now and now we don't have a choice. But I think even after the pandemic, there will be what we're talking about as the new normal. Even research will change, and this might become a more common practice to engage in online research. So if you are still with me, I will continue on to data analysis. And here, just to show you that Flick has been so like busy producing books. Like wow, here's another handbook. Flick has written, if you know, like you've done the research books, like Flick has written so much research methods books, and this puts together qualitative data analysis. Now, and this is not even my favorite book yet. You will still see my favorite book in a bit. But like here, just wanted to highlight that you have you can look at resources specifically for interview analysis, specific resource, specifically for FGD analysis. And I just wanted to include two things. You can do conversation analysis. That's a unique step. Maybe your students might get excited doing that, like looking at the conversation. Or you can even do discourse analysis. This is my favorite by Carla Willig, and looking at language and how language shapes our reality. Now, what I wanted to highlight for data analysis, now this is my favorite book. This is Carla Willig's and Wendy Stanton Rogers' Handbook on Quality Research. This is the beginning resource for the master level research course, yung methods ng MA. No? So usually the bridge here is thematic analysis. Undergrads, students should be able to master thematic analysis as a data analysis strategy. And our MA students have this as the starting point. And from there, they go and learn phenomenology, grounded theory, discourse analysis, and so on. Right? And I wanted to highlight that thematic analysis has become like really a critical resource, starting with this 2006 article by Braun and Clark, two feminist psychologists. And this article has produced a book and now is part of every introductory course on qualitative research. And in this is a short amount of time to become like really a standard, but like in 14 years, it has almost become the standard now of a beginning point for doing qualitative analysis. Thematic analysis, if there's something that you will read from beginning to end, I would suggest you read this article. Just reading it alone will just be your introduction already to doing qualitative research methods. And it can be a way for you to engage your students because this already summarizes everything that I've been talking about so far. It will begin with epistemology, it will go into methodology, And then it will go to these steps. These are the 6 basic steps for doing thematic analysis. And when you don't have a set guide on how to analyze data, you can use this because this can be applied to any epistemology. It's the basic steps of familiarizing yourself with the data, reading, rereading, generating initial codes, searching for themes, understanding what a theme is. A theme has to reveal a pattern in meaning, and then labeling that theme only at the end, never at the beginning, because your understanding of the meaning of the text will grow and change and evolve, even at the point of writing. So just to show a few examples here from the book, they use this example of their research, interestingly, on the vagina and how women talk about their vaginas. So this should be a very lively, exciting read for you. And this was their first map. They call it a thematic map. You can see the ones in ovals or circles are the key themes. The ones in squares are the sub-themes, but it's a little bit messy, no? Quite complicated. Like you don't know where to look at. Is it a positive talk, negative talk, the lack of awareness about your vagina, this particular part of your body? But you shift to the next figure and you will see how their analysis changes. And now this is now an iteration. So they went back to the data, went back to their theory, and then they reproduce the map. They're developing the map, and now you're reduced to 3 major themes. The vagina as an asset, the vagina as liability, and then something about awareness. But you can somewhat see, oh, they have this frame here. Why are they calling the vagina an asset and a liability, no? Sounds so economical, no? Parang sounds like an economics discourse. And then you go into their third figure, and the third figure is what you will find in their journal article. So you never see the iterations of the map, but in the methods class, you allow your students to experience the iteration. They do a first map, initial map, and then they revise and they show you again until they produce this lovely map of the vagina, which only shows 2 major themes, right? Which apparently follows an economic discourse. So that is an example. And towards the end of this article, they will show you some guideposts on how to check if they're doing good analysis. Look at that, 15 items to check if they did it well. And this can be part of your rubrics now for checking the quality of their work. So in the end, I just highlight there some of the, in the next slide, you will see how they argue for the advantages of thematic analysis. But as I said, this is an important skill. Probably to me, if students need to learn something, it's the data collection process of doing an interview, and it's analyzing data using thematic analysis. If they can master those 2 skills, I think we've done our jobs. Like parang we did good. If they can do that and then they can graduate and whatever, parang that would be great. Hopefully, we also master those skills. So hopefully we also practice doing that tiny interview and then maybe doing the thematic analysis ourselves, because that is crucial, because we cannot teach something that we've not practiced ourselves. Okay, so that is a method, reflexivity. I always end with reflexivity because you have to think, okay, how did my design, how did my choice of method shape the answer to my question? So there was epistemological reflexivity, methodological reflexivity, and always linking it back to personal reflexivity. Because in the end, we're the ones choosing. We're the ones who decided that's our epistemology. We're the ones who decided that will be my research design. So it always returns to a note on reflexivity. Okay, and then we produce the write-up. For this, I think I will link back to the pedagogy. I still have a final note on validity. Now, how do you know you're doing it well? How do you know it's good quality? This comes from Carly Willig. And a few points here. Even in the 90s, they already were producing guidelines. This is good quality. 7 points. That's just Henwood and Pigeon, which is usually used for grounded theory. Then you have Elliott and colleagues, 1999. 7 points. Ang dami, no? But like, that in your research, you're owning your perspective, you're situating it in the sample, making sure you establish the context, that this only applies to this particular group at this time, this space, etc. And now we follow Yardley, which has simplified the guidelines to 3 points. How are we being sensitive to the method, data, people, context, literature? How are we showing rigor? Did we do our thorough checking? Do we have a documentation of how we analyze? Did we show that we transcribed the data? No, we transcribed, and then we highlighted the line. It comes from line 437. That's the direct quote. You have to show rigor, and then show that it's meaningful, that what you did is useful, has impact and importance. Usually we use Yardley, who has, again, written a lot about validity and quality. And I'll end with just one note here on validity being the gold standard for quality, because sometimes we will hear people say, but is that generalizable? Like, how did you do reliability in your study? And the student will say, like, will not know how to answer. But see, that is a different lens. That is the lens used for quality research for a post-positivist paradigm. Inside now your quality research, you're looking at validity. You're looking at the voice. Is it authentic? The voice of the researcher, the voice of the participants. Is the data trustworthy? You're looking at validity here. So that rounds up our methodology section. Okay, sorry, I'm going. I know. Well, Ver will kill me. I've gone over time, I think. Do I just proceed with the? So how to teach? Let me just show some sample exercises that we can use, and I'll try to complete everything in 10 minutes so that we have time for questions and for people to share their comments. But just to say, as again and again, we learn through doing. This is active learning, experiential learning. We do that with our students. We also need to do it ourselves. So before immersing ourselves into teaching this course, do everything that you will ask your students to do so that you can engage with them when you ask them to go through the entire research process. Learning by doing. The slide that you're seeing is from Sarah Rose Kavanagh, and I will share that later at the end, because I really find her tips useful. These are all free also in Chronicle from the Chronicle of Higher Education. So learning by doing. Here are sample exercises. Returning again to epistemology, I always begin with an exercise asking them, when are you being post-positivist in your own life? When are you being constructionist? And to reflect, are you more positivist or constructionist? It's acceptable, whatever way. No? And you go into the next exercise, and this time, I ask them as a group. In the next exercise, you have groups asking, now think about the topic, produce a positivist question, produce a constructivist question, then getting to see the difference. How will the answer be different, given that you're applying a different lens? And then in the next slide, you'll see a further application where they need to find a journal article that is positivist and a journal article that is constructivist. All of these exercises are meant for them to get a grasp of epistemology before you go into methodology. So then moving into the next exercise, you will see that for going into methods, you assess for practical feasibility. This is the part where you now just also check for the ethics and the practice. And then going into some other sample exercises for data collection and data analysis, here's an example of what I require my students, a plan, And they need to provide the criteria for sampling, the instrument, the procedure. So you need, these are the things, the nitty-gritty that you have to check. And to show you the timeline, this is how their 1 month looks like. They have 8 requirements. Maybe that was too much, but like 8 requirements: interview guide, method plan, first week; documentation, transcript, second week; initial thematic map, final thematic map, third week; oral report, written report, fourth week. All this should be done in a group. It's easier to learn through the group, and then they can also help each other. So always work using a collaborative frame and collaboration. And this is just a sample documentation, what I asked them to put. They have to talk about their interview, how it went, the background, and then they talk about the steps, how did it happen. So it's document the interview process. For example, now they have to document how they did the online interview. How were they able to recruit? How did they start? How did they begin the interview online, etc.? And how did they end? And I always end with a reflexivity question. So asking them how it was. And then another sample exercise would be producing the transcript here. And for every step, it is helpful to always give them a sample. Even for the final paper, give them a sample paper. Always give them a guide. So here, if you want them to transcribe, just don't ask them to transcribe. You need to give them the template. This is the template of how you do it. And in the next slide, you will see the full template, which is like a 5-minute audio talk that will take around 1 hour to transcribe. It produces 2 pages of a single-spaced typewritten work. No. Okay. And then we have some samples on presenting. So if you go to the next slide, you see here that I break down 10 minutes to different parts. You will see in the introduction there. So I actually tell them what to say. Okay, start with the title slide. And then you say, we are, introduce yourselves, and then give the title of your study. You give them the exact script. So I give them the script for a 10-minute presentation. Fill in the sentence na lang nila yan. But that allows you to also manage your class. Especially now that we're online, we have to make sure, until 10 minutes lang. So then this is how I tell them how you present. This is a very good exercise to keep the people following a template. The last exercise, last sample, is how to write the report. So again, I tell them 12 pages, how to break it down. You will see it in the next slide. I break it down into this, in this way. Where, okay, 2 pages lang of intro, 2 pages lang of method. I actually tell them how many pages. Sometimes I even give them the word count. And then I tell them, spend 5 pages on your results. So that is an example of how you give a template every time and a sample work every time. It's very useful, tool for teaching. And I end with this tool: do more, do pa more. Could have been Italian or French, like do more, do pa more. But the point is, you get what I'm saying. We have to practice what we teach, and we have to ask our students to do the same. So learning by doing is how we teach methods. Are you still with me? I hope you're still with me. And this is our last point. Now we're in an online context. What do we do with our classes? And for this, I will refer you to 4 references. This one is by Bender and Hill. Again, just readily available, and I can share everything naman to share to you. This already outlines some of the ways by which we can effectively teach research, and in particular quality research, in an online environment already. So there is a resource already for that. The second resource is by Snelson, who already did a review of LIT, of what we know about teaching methods online. And the last 2 I will share come from the Chronicle of Higher Education. This one is by Flower Darby, and I just want to go through the slides. No, he has 10 points. First, just show up. We're also scared, no, but just show up, because one of the most important things now that we're online is to be present. We have to make them feel our presence. Some call it telepresence. How do you do that? You message them regularly every start of the week. Here, I created look at that, that's my avatar. So that to me is creating my presence online. So every time now that they will see, let's say I email them, or on our LMS, I message them, they will see my avatar. Does it look like me? I have a long hair now because I can't go to the but like example, okay? Okay. So then you just be yourself. How you are as a teacher in person, bring that to your online class. Because in the end, it's you. It's you, the person. And then think of where they are. Because they could be also having some fears and anxieties. They might be in isolation. Do they have good internet? So also thinking, how are they experiencing the class? And it would be good to check and ask them for feedback. Like I remember even in my own class, when the pandemic hit and we were still having online classes, I had one class that could not meet because the anxiety was just so high. And so instead of going through the content of the class, we would come to the session and just sharing our anxieties. Okay. Organize the content intuitively, make it easy for your students to follow. And then 5 will be just adding visual appeal, as I've shared, like putting an avatar there, making it also, because now everything is just visual. No, wala na yung like, before you could just walk around, there's a lot of like live interaction, but now everything has to be interpreted visually. Number 6, explaining your expectations as if you're speaking, because we give instructions differently when we're talking compared to when it's written. No, it may not be easily understood. Number 7, you have to scaffold the learning step by step, giving feedback at each step. And number 8, to always provide examples, as I've been doing, just give more and more examples, always telling the story of how you would do research. Make it inviting, make it pleasant so that people would want to come. And the last is to commit to continuous learning. As I said, we go again to do pa more, okay? And to end, 4 points here to end. Remember where you're coming from. Connect it to the meaning of research for you. Connect it to the meaning of research for them. Because when people can feel, when they have that emotion, that's what drives the desire to learn. Connecting that meaning to emotion. The second is just being present, almost like performing. They say teaching is a performance. The third is to create a community. Make your students feel they are still part of a class. Engage and make everything collaborative. Make everything also consultative. And the last is to share stories. As you teach, you share your own story, your own experience of doing the research, and they also let your students share their own. So in that way, you also create a community. So connect to the material, connect first to the people. Connect to yourself, the people, your students, connect to the material, connect to the teaching. Find your personal meaning. Start with where you are. Yay, I think I did it. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay! Thank you, Dr. Mira. Maraming salamat. Lagyan natin naman ng magic applause para...
Wow!
Yan!
Hey! I want that.
Ayan. Kasi sabi nyo visual. Kami gusto namin auditory din yung learning. Learning
Yes.
Yon. So maraming salamat, Dr. Mira Ofreneo. Sige, inom po muna kayo. We'll go through some of the comments.
Comments and questions?
Or, yeah, and questions. Meron bang nagko-comment or nagki-question? Meron ba
Yung
mga
isang nakita ko is asking for copy of the articles, but I guess that was already answered.
sige. So what we'll do is so the slides and the resources will be provided, especially kung freeware naman siya. Again, meron naman tayong fair use and content disclaimer. So gagamitin naman natin siya for educational purposes. No? So siguro ako, ma'am, ang question ko lang, given for example in Ateneo, you'll be having it a quarterly, no? Na parang 2 months lang yung given in a particular SEM as compared to a regular 5, tama ba? Parang 18 weeks or 4 months. How do you think can we still do qualitative research given na now it's now more compressed, let's say in 2 months? What would be your non-negotiables? You've mentioned several things, but perhaps we can down na parang in a 2-month scenario, ano ba yung pwedeng nilang magawa given na ito yung mga specific topics and content?
I think now that we're working in parang chunks and we create modules, I would say that, as I said earlier, making sure that we go through like the interview process, because that's the interaction with other people. I would say create one module on that. No? And then maybe create one module just on data analysis, like thematic analysis, because the analysis can be applied to existing data, like for example, FB posts or Twitter posts or comments. So they can keep on practicing thematic analysis. If you only have 2 months, I'd say develop those 2 skills. No, the interviewing kasi is to build also the capacity to interact. The skill of analyzing, that's critical for me. So maybe just have 2 modules and then that's 2 months.
Right. And siguro we need to remind then our students, hindi to full-blown thesis. Baka mamaya.
Yes. Yeah, that's why I said even the interview, you don't need to ask them to do 1 hour. Like just a simple topic. It can be even like a 10-minute interview, maybe maximum of 30 minutes. As long as you have, your good guide questions, that can reveal a lot about people, about their experiences.
Right. And it should be, again, this is a preliminary, preparatory course. Kasi usually binibigay ito mga second year college, no? Right after statistics. So parang kahit pa paano, they already know how to make items based on surveys, and then they can build on that as well. No? Sige, we have a question from Vince. Hello, Vince. De, joke lang.
Yeah.
Okay. Ano yung question ni Vince? Sorry, hindi ko mabasa.
Okay. Good afternoon daw po, Ma'am Mira. His question is, in using qualitative methods, do we cite existing literature in discussing our findings? Will it affect the authenticity of the results?
I'd say there are different approaches to it, but I think for our undergrad students, the usual, just to make it sort of like distinct, no? We say that in the results, don't put any literature. Una. So then the way you're analyzing reflects the researcher's lens or frame, and just the participants' words or direct quotes. And then leave the literature for the discussion section for undergrad. Because later on, we could, some would put results and discussion together where they're interwoven. So, but that's for our undergrad level. But meaning done also. That is done by certain approaches.
Ma'am, usually ba, for example, for presentations, is it presented to a group of faculty members or they just present it to you?
There are several steps. Like for me, I always begin with an informal consultation. So then it's just the group. Let's say you have a group of 4 or 5 people and then just you. And then they share initially. They do like parang like a mock, and then okay, that works. And then I do a second step. Now you present to the class. So then the class gives feedback. Usually you assign another group to be the panel, like para, oh, give your, so then they're also learning how to evaluate and give feedback. And if there's time, we can have a more formal presentation and invite a faculty to come in. No. So that should be for the end if there's time. But if not, I think valuable already to have your students interacting with each other.
Mm-mm.
With each other.
Thank you, ma'am. You mentioned something about collaboration. Would it still be possible, for example, that an individual, kasi because of uh, access to internet and devices are very limited, not a lot of people could be, yung physical na hirap na tayo mag-interact, no, at mag-collaborate. Would you still recommend, or would you have any thoughts on individuals, for example, doing particular these steps, although it will be difficult, pero would it still be possible na kung mag-isa lang ako, kakayanin ko pa rin ba siya? And how would the teacher approach that siguro?
Well, from the teacher side, that's more checking
Yeah.
and more guidance. Because imagine if you have like even sometimes we have a class of 30, 40. Wow. Like 30 individual students going through that process, that's a lot to manage as a teacher. I think doable if you only have a class of 8, maybe. That can work. And then they do their individual process. In unique circumstances, I think we will consider, given, like, for example, a student is really unable to, let's say, connect with other, in terms of connectivity. But what I've also noticed is that students, even before this situation, they're very good at collaborating online. And all of their work is done online. Sometimes they just send me their Google Docs and I'm like, why are you giving me your Google Docs? Like, so used to like just working together, or they include me in their chat. It's like, I think the other thing we have to maybe check or ask where our students are. And especially this generation now of our psych majors who are 18, 19, like that. And check if it works for them, because I have, my intuitive feeling is they're so used to this.
Mm-mm.
Who are actually adjusting, the teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Sige, meron lang tayong question from the RIPSIG watch party from Junel, tama ba? Junel San Juan Labor or Daybor. Sabi niya, I am interested on the ethics in the conduct of virtual methods. Will the researchers be able to get clearances within the prescribed and limited time of the semester? Oo, kasi di ba minsan tumatagal din tayo because of those ethical
Well, for example, in Ateneo, the rule is if you're doing, like practice research as part of a class and it's not meant for publication, it does not go through an ethics clearance. So the checking is at the level of the faculty. If they are serving, ethical guidelines, and they still are required to submit like a protocol. For the undergrad thesis, they're required to get approval, and parang the idea is that is already factored in the process. The ethics approval should take like there has to be like a system device by departments and universities to be able to address the time consideration. But it's a valid concern for those who are trying to finish their thesis, let's say.
or siguro din for research or for field methods teachers, what you can do is also to try to check what are public records. Kasi usually kapag hindi ganun ka-sensitive naman yung topic at publicly available yung data, mas mabilis siyang napoprocess. For example, Ma'am Mira mentioned something about Facebook posts and Twitter and tweets. no, that are publicly available. So you just have to maintain, let's say, the anonymity side and stuff. But since these are publicly available data, mas madalis, faster siguro yung in terms of, am I correct, Ma'am Mira?
Right, that's right. That's a good point where it's like if you're assuming that the research is for publication, then the publicly available data, like a lot of things on FB are public and the comments are public. When that, there's still like an sort of like ethics clearance, but it's expedited because it did not interact with people. No? So human interaction, unless the FB post comes alive, and it's ano siya, like, and it's a good idea that you're sharing because there's so much phenomena in these publicly available data because these are words of people, the things that they post, the comments, these are all sharing their thoughts, their feelings. So it's really good source. And even in my own research, I do a lot of work that are based on publicly available data.
That's correct. All right. So siguro that's all the time that we have for now. We would like to share lang. Thank you daw so much, Dr. Mira. Thank you, PAP Teaching Division.
Teaching SIG po.
Teaching SIG. Thank you, Nina Division. Correct. There are those who are asking about the freewares and where you can get them.
The ebook.
So most of these naman are available online, but we'll try to, those that are coming from Dr. Mira, will try to upload it on her Google Drive, and then we'll also share it together with the SIG, PAP-RIT-SIG page. No? We also have words of appreciation from Angelina Villanueva. They're asking daw if this can be repeated or they can listen to again.
Yeah.
Wala pa tayong account sa Spotify.
Yeah. But you can go to our YouTube channel. I think it will be it's streamed there simultaneously. So you can check out and please click the like button and subscribe para marami din naman, more than 83 subscribers para dumami.
So thank you from our board member, Doc Lai Dalyarte. Thank you for joining us. Thank you daw, Dr. Mira Ofreneo. Again, thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr. Mira. Let's bring in Ma'am Joy para kompleto tayong lahat. Baka meron silang gustong i-plug. Ayan, ang dami na natin. Tanggalin na natin yung ibang mga comments para lumaki naman tayo. Okay. Doc Joy, Ma'am Shai, baka meron kayong gustong i-plug for your RIT-SIG?
Okay, on July 10, we actually have another webinar on research ethics with Dr. Lian Alampay. So I hope you can join us. Just please check the FB page of the Research in Psychology Special Interest Group. That's 2 to 4 p.m. on July 10.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you.
And on behalf of on behalf of our SIG, thank you so much, Mamira, and thank you so much
thank you, Mira.
in partnership with Teaching SIG.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Mamira, baka meron ka din gustong i-plug? Guestings, Senate hearing,
interview.
I have an intro to Quali webinar on next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. for the Calabarzon chapter of PAP. Yes.
Yes. So, check out nyo din yung PAP Calabarzon ni Maropa chapter.
Yes.
And all other webisodes also by the Psychological Association of the Philippines. Maraming salamat po ulit. Sana next time po wag yung kinakalaban yung time slot po namin na 2 to 4.
Because we're going on 3 seasons. May season 2 pa ho kami at saka season 3. So, sana ho, let's say,
again, kami, masayang-masaya kami kahit na meron kaming kasabay na mga shows. Kasi this would also give, again, a lot of opportunities, mas maraming choices. Again, most of our webinars naman have replays. So if you were not able to catch us live, you can always check our replays again on our social media platforms and YouTube. But before we let you all go, meron lang babasahin muna ito yung ano talaga lagi meron pa tayo isang episode for
season 1. Yes. Our last webisode for season 1. This is in partnership with the Developmental Psychology Division of PAP. How to virtually teach developmental psychology with Professor Moreno Javier and Dr. Ochoa. That will be on the 26th of June. That's Friday, 2 p.m. Again, no registration is needed. Just visit our Facebook page and click on that live stream button.
May nag-point out mali daw yung aming, ay nawala na si Ma'am Mira. Ayaw mo na sa amin, Ma'am Mira. May nag-point out na mali daw yung spelling namin ng visit. Thank you for pointing that out. Again, thank you so much. Thank you RIPSIG for this collaboration. We hope that and we appreciate all your efforts to help our psychology teachers in doing research. Thank you, Ma'am Mira, to Ateneo.
Thank you, Ma'am Mira.
Thank you, Ma'am Mira.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.